各位观众大家好，今天是12月17号，日子真快，一转眼已经12月份的下旬开始了，下半旬开始了。今天是礼拜四，照例也是 BC 省的新冠疫情的新闻简报，一般是礼拜一和礼拜四2天。那么平时的时候呢，他们都是书面简报，平时都是3点，今天也是3点，我3点钟就早等了，结果一直等到3点半才出信号。看来他们也有事比较忙，估计是忙疫苗的事情。那么说好3点半，到现在还没开始。昨天呢是书面的，是新增是640个。按照礼拜一 Bonnie Henry 的说法，现在目前貌似是平，他说是把这个急速上升的曲线给拉平了。已经3点33分了，还没来。好，音乐没了，应该来了。好，首先出场的是我们的卫生厅厅长Andrew Dix， 和后面跟的是我们的首席医官 Bonnie Henry。Henry 是他的姓，叫亨利医生。他的名叫 Bonnie
Henry, BC's Provincial Health Officer. This is our
briefing
COVID-19 briefing for British Columbia for Thursday, December 17th. We're honored to be here on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll be releasing a written briefing, a written presentation with an update on COVID-19 cases and other relevant information with respect to the pandemic in BC. That should be around 3 o'clock.
他又说了是大约3点钟，礼拜一他自己有点笑了可能是今天又说好3点钟了
On December the 22nd, there'll be again a written update.
21号、22号他说又是书面通知。
And then on Wednesday, December 23rd,
那么23号
there'll
是
be
礼拜
a further
3。
in-person briefing, and that in-person briefing will include a presentation by Dr. Henry on modeling and other relevant information about COVID-19, about the state of the pandemic in BC, and information that will be of interest. And a presentation will be as part of that briefing. And so with that, it's my honor to introduce Dr. Bonnie Henry.
23号是下星期3了。
Thank you and good afternoon.
大家下午好。
Today we are reporting on 673 new cases of COVID-19 in BC, including 6 epidemiologically linked cases, bringing our total number of people diagnosed with COVID-19 in BC to 44,776. Of the new cases, 145 people were in Vancouver Coastal Health Region, 403 people were in the Fraser Health Region, 4 were in Vancouver Island Health Region, 66 people were in the Interior Health Region, and 47 in the Northern Health Region. In addition, we had 8 new cases in people who normally reside outside of Canada.
这个很厉害了。
We now have just over 10,009 active cases, of whom 358 people are in hospital, 93 of whom are in critical care or ICU.
哇，98个
We also
ICU
have 10,388 people under active public health monitoring because of exposures to COVID-19, and 32,963 who are recovered. Sadly, again today, we've had 21 new deaths from COVID-19. The majority of them, again, are seniors and elders in long-term care, bringing the total number of people who've died in British Columbia to 713.
713个了，累计死亡我的诚挚的哀悼给那些失去亲人的家庭和朋友。我们感觉到你们的损失，你们的损失很惨重。这个也是今年的全球流行病，你们的损失 我们大家都体会到了。
We have no new healthcare
那么没有
outbreaks to
新的
report,
这
leaving
个
us with
爆发
55
情况，
active outbreaks in long-term care and
还是
assisted
55
living
个长期护
and
理院，
6 in acute care
包括
units.
6个是，其中有6个
That
是急
includes
诊性诊疗所。
1,374 residents and
爆发的情况，那么
735
其中是
staff
1374个居民，700多个是职员。
There have been 2 new outbreaks in the community. One of them at Wingtat Game Bird
Wingtat Game
Packers,
就
which
是
is
一
a
个
poultry processing
一个
plant
家禽
in the Fraser Health
我们
region,
华
and
人
the
熟悉
other
的，就是这个
the
什么走地
diversified
鸡啊之类
transportation
的，
employees
这个在飞
connected
沙
to
情况
LNG
下的，
Canada.
还有一个是
As
加拿大的
Minister Dix mentioned, next week
这
we'll
个
be
LNG 就
providing
是
data
天然气
update to
素或
show
这个
some
已
of the
经
progress over the
爆发
last
情
month
况
and where
已
we
经
are
被
in the
这个宣布
pandemic
结束
right
啊。
now. On a positive note, of course,
他
we
说，
know
那
that
么正面
vaccine
的
has
消息是
arrived here in
这
British
个
Columbia,
疫苗
and
已
in the
经来了。
last day, up until yesterday, 1,215 healthcare workers have
那
received
么
the
昨天为止已
COVID-19
经1100
vaccine.
多个
And that is
职员这个
great
就是
testament
医
to
护人员已经打了
the
疫
work
苗
of the
接
public
种疫
health
苗了。
clinics and to healthcare workers who have stepped up to do their
他们
best.
是很勇敢，他们
Starting
是自
next
己
week, we
站
will
出
be
来
receiving
要求接
weekly
受接
vaccine
种。
deliveries, and it is a
那么
moving
下星期
target,
三
and
呢，
we
我
are
们慢慢的朝着目标完成目标前
updates
进。
about amount
我
of
们会给
vaccine
大
and when
家
it will
会
be
更新
received,
有
sometimes
多少
multiple
个
times a day.
疫苗
But
会
we do
接收
expect
到
and
多少
plan
个
are
疫苗
planning for
施打。
immunization clinics in every health region across
我
the
们
province
下星期
starting
开始，
early
每
next
个卫
week.
生局下面
And I
都
know
会
many
有
people
疫苗
are
给
eagerly
大家施打
awaiting this.
我知道很
As you
多
can
人在
imagine,
等着了
this is a national effort.
这个
and we
也是
get
大家知道，这个也
deliveries
是
and
我们全
processes
国
set
的
up, and
努力
things are
也
rapidly
是联邦政
changing.
府的一起
And
努力。
timings will be
所
provided
以
as
现在
soon
这
as
个
they are confirmed.
他们在赶
And
分赶秒的
I've received a
在
number
为
of
大家
questions about the
运输
vaccine,
疫
but one
苗
of them that
采
I've
购疫
received
苗。
from a lot of people is why the vaccine is not recommended for people who are immunocompromised.
那么
and
我
what
们也
exactly that
提醒
means.
大家，不是所有的艺
For some
人都
people
能
with an
适合
underlying
疫
health
苗，有些
condition
长期病的
who
或者
are
怎么样
undergoing
的特
certain
殊病的
treatments or
还不能
on
打
certain
这个疫
medications,
苗。
it lowers their ability for their body to respond to viruses, and we know that that makes people more at risk of having severe illness with COVID. But it also means that they may not respond as well to certain vaccines as
那
well.
么有些人他有基础病，
this
因
would
为
apply
这
to
个对这个
people
病
who've had an
毒
organ
有一个
transplant, for
强烈的
example,
这个反应，
have
但
chronic
所
liver
以
kidney
他们
disease,
对疫
someone
苗也
receiving
会有这个
chemotherapy
不好的
or
反应，
certain
所以这
immunosuppressive
个特
therapies.
别是这
If
种
you're
长期的
wondering
肝
if this
病啊、
applies
肾
to
病
you,
啊
because
等
it's
等。
not all kinds of immune
但是呢，
conditions, the
请大
best
家
thing
放
to
心，
do is
这
to
个成熟
consult
的
with your
医疗
healthcare
诊断、
provider.
医疗的这个
The
救治
reason
都
that
比
this
较成熟
vaccine is not yet
大家医
recommended
护
for
人员
people who are
国际科学家
immunocompromised
都在积极的
is
努力
because the clinical
所以
trials
对这些特殊的病人、
expressly
长期病人
excluded
来
people
讲，
with
这
those
个疫苗不
conditions
是
and
推荐
focused
去使
on
用的，所
primarily
以疫
healthy
苗的施打
populations
还
of
是
people
有
of different
一些
ages.
条件的。
So
所
there
以
were
这个
very
对
few
大部
people
分
who did
大部
have
分的医护工作
immunocompromising
人员，
conditions
大
who
部
were
分
in
的
the
常年
trials.
正
So
常
what
人
that
这
tells
个
us
正
is
常
that
常
right
年
now
人
we
是使
just
用的
don't。 know
我今天看到
whether
的
these
说是
vaccines
16岁
will
以下
work
的孩子是
and
不
whether
打的
they're safe or whether
因
they
为这
may
个疫
have
苗
some
现在
effects
他
on
说
the
了，还
immune
是在试
system.
用阶段
Having said
现在还是试验
that,
期，
this is a
所以
recommendation
大家
from
知
our
道这个是
National
紧急
Advisory
授
Committee on
权使用，
Immunization, who
这个不
reviews all
等
of
于
the
这个
data
疫苗
that
就
we
是成
have
熟的，
on
就像
safety
SARS 一样
and
，SARS 的病
efficacy,
毒
so
疫苗
how
后来就没有了
the vaccine
就这个
works.
道理，所以这个是紧急
But
授
it
权使用。
also, part of that recommendation
所以
is
这个也
to
是
make
今天
that
刚才
decision
伯尼医生
with
也
your
强
care
调的
provider on a case-by-case basis, whether the risk of being infected with COVID
那么他也
outweighs
是
the
说
risk
到了这
of
个
receiving the vaccine. So that is something that will have to be done on a one-on-one basis for people who have immune-compromising condition.
所以
As
他
we
也是
learn
说到
more
了
about this
我们要区别
vaccine.
对待每一个人，不是说一股脑儿都是统
It
一
is
的
also,
都
of
统一
course,
的是每一
important
个
to
人都不一样，
understand
每
that
个人
while
条
we
件不一样，
continue
每个
to
人的身
respond
体
to the
自身的条件不一样
COVID-19 pandemic,
包括了医
if
护
you
人员也
need
是
medical care,
都要自我
it
准
is
视
available
就像
and
大家
it is
今年
safe
如果去打
in
过
hospitals
流
and
感疫苗的话
healthcare
都会有
facilities
填
and in
一些
primary
表
care
格
clinics
这个表
across
格
the
一
province.
部分
You
是
do not need
COVID-19 的
to
表格
delay
还有一部分
appointments,
就是
and if
这
there's a
流感的表格啊，一样的，你要打这个现在新冠疫苗的表 填的表格也一样自我检视一下，叫英文叫 screening 所以他说一切都是为了安全，为了大家的安全。所以他说我们现在大家都开始慢慢随着病毒的共舞的时间长了，大家对病毒的了解也多了。我们也是做到应测尽测我们也是知道，他就是说按照中国话说应测尽测我们也是希望大家那么只要你有些就算是阳性了，那么只要是你自我隔离也是可以的，因为大多数人就这么好了。那么我昨天得到的一个消息是说，昨天的一天测试是15000例，那么640个人阳性，那么算下来5%不到，阳性率5%不到。
In your social group, and you have any symptoms at all, you should arrange to get tested.
那么所以再提醒大家，只要你有任何症状了，马上就提出检测不要再去接触任何人了。就是这个意思，包括上班也好，包括你社交也好，包括家人也好，等等，就只有是这样我们都有明确的指导意见给大家行为指南很清晰明了。所以如果你去测了，那么其他跟你接触过的人都要来测。那么我们现在也看到了很多这个症状当然了，有和流感的症状和感冒的症状有时候也是会像。
And these include having fever, chills, a cough,
包括了他说有些症状，比如说关键是失味，味觉没有了，嗅觉没有了，然后又有热度，那么基本上就是这个是 COVID-19 的新冠的这个症状。这个是我们也会给你们一个就是优先次序去检测所以希望你只要有这些症状了，马上去。那么当然了，其他的一些症状可能也和这个新冠相关但是不一定等于你就有了。但是刚才他说了没有嗅觉，没有味觉，那有热度，基本上就是新冠了包括了这个他说的有些人喉咙疼等等这个还有头疼这些症状有些有可能是流感，也有可能是感冒等等这个你可以去等一等，也可以去观察一下然后等个24小时再看看，然后再来检测只要你们有对这些有疑虑、有焦虑有顾虑，你或者你已经跟有些这个阳性的人接触过了，请马上联系我们，请马上来检测那么或者呢打811电话先电话咨询我已经提了很多次数了我们也给大家也调查了很多次了那么很多的症状什么都是有共性的，所以就是说特别上班的时候也是我们也是提到了很多我们应对于应对这个新冠病毒，我们有很多的命令，我们有很多的这个行为指南都在时刻的在变化，希望大家能够一直关注我们的网站。我们所有的所有的目的就是希望大家能够强健起来，健康我们包括了会有很多的这个跟踪接触的工作人员，还有一些工作在前线的医护人员
It's also the hundreds and thousands of people across BC who are doing your part every day.
他说我们全省贯穿于全省的每天有10几万人都在做为你在做这些基本工作这个是在为你在做所以希望大家还是要遵守珍惜能够尽量少一点的人聚集就少一点。现在这个都是要马上到圣诞节了这个节假日季节来了，希望大家今年不一样和往年不一样，希望大家做出与众不同的，度过一个与众不同的希望大家能够这个人群少一点，能够安全我请求大家希望大家能够自我承诺能够度过一个安全的节假日
But without a doubt, we have
我们现在
light
马上
ahead,
要度
and
过
we
最
can't let
长
all
的
that
漫
sacrifice
夜，
that
马
we
上就要
have
结
done
束了。
together
但
in this
是
past
我们
year
所做之
be
前
all
所
for
做的
naught.
牺牲，
What you do
大家再
makes a
坚持一
difference
下
and
啊！
is
不要现在就
making a
放弃，你
difference
这样放弃的话，
today.
之前的牺牲
The
全部白
efforts you
搭。
make
所以
mean
我们
that
每
we
一
will
天
all
所
be
做的
safer
努
as
力
a result,
啊，都是
and we
对
will get
将
through
来
this
都有一个
pandemic.
结果。
So
这
let's
个
together make
所以
this
希望
holiday
大家
season
能够
a safe
安全的
season
度
for
过
all
今
of
年
us
的这个节
and
假日
continue
啊！
to
希
be
望大家
kind,
还是
to be
继续
calm,
的
and to
那
be
个
safe.
安心
Thank you.
这个关心以及安全啊！Be kind, be safe, and be calm 啊！那么现在右卫生厅长他照例是代表省长对这个过去24小时里边死亡的21例人都有my condolence 啊，都这些啊，这个我想起来了，原来我也说过 condolences 呢不能是对死人，而是对这个活着的人啊说 send my condolences。那么我们的这个中国的战狼女战狼啊，在 Twitter 上有一次那个中国驻以色列的外交官死了，那么他说他的 condolences 对这个死者，结果在 Twitter 上闹了个笑话。当然了，这个英文毕竟不是我们的国语的母语，这个错误是难免。但是呢，作为战狼外交部，以为是他们的工作、他们的工具说这个闹的这个笑话还是不应该了。那么他也说到了大家的这个团结一致啊，他特意提到了希腊裔。可能也是有一些这个特殊的损失、特殊的人亡，那么希望大家还是团结起来那么共同的对这些失去生命的家庭朋友呢表达这个哀心哀悼。
People, members of the Hospital Employees Union, the BCGU, the Health Sciences Association, the BCNU, the Doctors of BC, QP, the Ambulance Paramedics of BC, QP Local 873, who are doing in these times extraordinary work. We had 4,992 emergency room visits yesterday. That's less than normal, it should be said. Especially for this time of year, but nonetheless, a significant challenge for people in hospital during a pandemic. We had our acute care facilities, their occupancy, when you count surge beds, is 69.9% of overall beds and 53.6% of ICU beds. But in terms of our regular bed capacity, that occupancy is 88.8%. In regular beds, and 78.2%. 那
么普通的这个病床呢是占了还是60%-70%。那么大家也看到了这个现在面临的挑战因为这些医护工作人员要额外的付出辛苦。大家可以看到现在这个重症监护已经98了我自我安慰一下，之前还自我安慰这个10月26号我记得重症监护才77个，到了11月13号才44个，11月16号57个，59个，59个，到了12月2号79个，但今天20天过去了，一下子多了20个，98个了。我希望我听错了，记错了。那么他也是看到了，在这个长期护理院为了大家过节有一个节日气氛，都在积极的做这些顺段的装饰等等。我也感谢大家这个付出了更多的努力，的确是，这些都是工作人员的额外的辛苦，因为使得这个让大家能够安全的度过这个节假期。的确是这样，本来已经是要在长期护理院都要隔离了在这个隔离的情况下，长期护理院的医护工作人员还要为大家营造这个节假日的氛围，去做这个圣诞节的装修。装饰。那么他也是说到了，到目前为止已经完成了雇佣1235个跟踪接触的工作人员，原来是500个从起始是500个计划，后来一点一点扩充，因为现在他看到了已经1235个了那么这个也是达到了一个新的目标。那么同时呢，也要说到了这个
trade and convention center, and 76 community health representative positions to support culturally safe contact tracing efforts within First Nations communities are to be hired with money provided or funding provided by the Ministry of Health, by the First Nations Health Authority. In addition, we are continuing to build up our capacity in terms of contact tracing. 385 candidates are currently in the interview stage. 121 candidates are in the offer stage. And just to note by health authorities to show that it's everywhere in BC that the teams have been hired. This is in addition to the 500 to 600 people that were involved in contact tracing before August. 280 have been hired in Vancouver Coastal Health, 579 in Fraser Health, 71 in Island Health, 63 in Interior Health, 42 in Northern Health, and 200 PHSA, which includes, of course, the BC Centre for Disease Control. With respect to surgeries this week, as you know, we have our surgeons, our nurses, our health sciences professionals, our healthcare workers are doing and continue to do an extraordinary job. Since we made the surgical renewal commitment and relaunched non-urgent scheduled surgeries, or elective surgeries are sometimes called, on May 18th, 52,997 have been completed in Fraser Health, 35,629 in Interior Health, 11,413 in Northern Health, 46,076 in Vancouver Coastal Health, 40,443 in Vancouver Island Health, and 7,856 in Provincial Health Services Authority. Last week, health authorities reported 6,859 surgeries completed from November 30th to December 6th. Health authorities have not verified their data, and the total number of surgeries completed was, in fact, 7,335, again, significantly higher than the equivalent period last year. This week we're reporting that we've completed, again, in the initial report, 6,747 surgeries, and we will be updating everyone in BC with our monthly reports that are led and put together by a team led by former Fraser Health CEO Michael Marchbank, who will be providing that information and update on that next week. I wanted to note that with respect to the Health Human Resources to support senior services in BC, that approximately now 1,151 FTEs have been hired to support visitation. That's 297 since our last report, I believe. And we also have a very significant number of people, 5,085 participants have participated in our Health Career Access Program participant pool now, which is up considerably after clearing their preliminary checks. And a further 4,790 people have expressed interest. So that is part of our initiatives to hire 7,000 individuals into the health service sector over 3 initiatives to support seniors' care. As you know, in the last few days, the conversations about COVID-19 have changed. There's been, of course, some discussion of vaccine. Well, of course, we're all reflecting on the cost, the continued cost to our communities and to all of us of the pandemic. And I think I wanted to say this.
有一个网友，谢谢你的评论啊，不辛苦，我只要把希望通过我的努力，把政府的声音也带给大家啊。这个西方国家和这个我们出生来的国家是完全不一样的啊。这个媒体它没有为政府做宣传的义务。那么我现在看到了更多的那些对病毒这次疫情的曲解，以及为了利用这个人们的这个恐惧、紧张心理，为了自己的这个公众号。为了自己的媒体扩大这个影响啊，趁机吸粉不断的就是标题党或者是夸大，所以我是坚持能够对大家做些直播。这个不是说把他们每一个重要的字都翻译出来，我也没这个本事。那么只要是觉得重要的，我把它发出来。我相信大家收看的网友基本上也听得懂他们在说什么。这个也谢谢你们笑。
positifs pour COVID-19 pour un total de 44 776 cas en Colombie-Britannique. Nous sommes attristés d'annoncer 21 nouveaux décès liés au COVID-19 pour un total de 713 décès en Colombie-Britannique. Nous offrons nos condoléances à tous ceux qui ont perdu leurs proches pendant cette pandémie. Parmi l'ensemble des cas confirmés de COVID-19, 358 personnes sont actuellement hospitalisées, dont 93 en soins intensifs. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. We're happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Minister. As a reminder to everybody on the phone, please press star 1 to enter the queue. You are limited to one question and one follow-up. Please unmute your phones. You're not audible until your name is called. First question today is from Richard Zussman, Global News.
Dr. Henry, I'm just curious about that number of cases linked not to one of the health authorities, up to 8. I can't remember a time where that number has been that high. Are we worried that this is people traveling from outside the province coming to British Columbia potentially for the holidays, and with them either bringing with them COVID or spreading COVID?
比如说今天是8个境外获得的那么说是不是这个我们对旅游的这个限制不是很严谨对一些旅游来的人我说的旅游不一定是真正的旅游旅行来的人那么他说了去解释一下这个有些们是工人有些们是
Big White, for example, so some of the outbreaks, people who normally don't reside in Canada.
有些人是不是疫情国他们是从外面过来的那么谢谢你的澄清也就是说我不知道我们已经开放了吗
There are still significant concerns from First Nations community about not having specific COVID data for their communities.
那么就有提到了原住民原住民的比较特殊他们的社区比较特殊这个也是要关心的
I think we're looking at the Office of the Privacy Commissioners
包括了因为他们有一个小什么
decision in some detail, and I'm very appreciative of the work you do to mitigate the issues around this. And we are continuing to work, particularly with the coastal First Nations. We've had a number of really actually successful open meetings about the information they need, the information that we can provide to support it, and we are negotiating an agreement on that. I absolutely understand and commit to providing as much information as I can to support First Nations and all First Nations leaders. And I've had the privilege of meeting with the First Nations Leadership Council again this week for a couple of hours to talk about the importance of vaccines in their communities as well. So we are committed to make sure we have the information and the arrangements and the agreements that they as leaders and governments in their own nations need to make the decisions they need. They need to make, and just to say that I also have a responsibility to keep certain information confidential on people's personal health information, and it's a balancing of those two things. And we do have an ongoing agreement very early on in this. I compelled the linking of data with the First Nations client file, and that information is provided on a daily basis to the First Nations Health Authority so that they do, and we all do, know the information about First Nations peoples and how they are being affected by this pandemic. And that is very important.
Next question is from Marcella Bernardo, News 1130.
Hi, Dr. Henry, and I probably won't get a chance to tell you this ahead of time, but happy Christmas heading into the holidays. I'm going to be off for a few days in the next couple of weeks, but wanted to ask you how concerned you are about an outbreak right now at Vancouver's Little Mountain Place nursing home, where at least 17 people have died, and almost everyone there has tested positive for COVID, considering that there's 117 beds there, and 119 people now that have been confirmed to have the virus.
You know, there are a couple, and we've mentioned this, there are several long-term care outbreaks, both in Fraser Health and in Vancouver Coastal, and one in Ontario, where we've had larger numbers of people, and it's been such a challenge to try and stop the transmission. The numbers of cases, of course, include both patients and residents, and staff at that facility, but it is differentially the residents residents who have the more severe illness who are dying from COVID. So I am obviously very concerned we've been talking, we're doing an intense blitz on all long-term care homes to try and be sure that we are stepping up all of the measures to try and prevent transmission. What we are learning is that this virus spreads so easily this time of year, and that when it gets into a care home, an assisted living facility, some of our acute care facilities, it can spread very rapidly, and it's very much a challenge once it starts spreading to gain control again. So I know they're working very hard to try and this also speaks to why it is a focus for us to get as many people who work in long-term care immunized as quickly as possible, and as soon as we are able, we will be taking vaccine to residents in care homes, and I'm hopeful that will happen in the coming weeks as well.
Having said that, what more can be done to test people so that we're not seeing these kinds of outbreaks taking over an entire facility like this one has?
Yeah, testing is part of it. The screening, the physical barriers, the cleaning, keeping people apart, trying to reduce the number of people. These are all things that we are working on. There is screening being done at facilities. There's testing being done as soon as anybody is identified. All of the staff and residents are tested on a repeat basis. That's part of the protocol. It is very, very challenging in these situations.
Next question is from Shannon Patterson, CTV.
Hi, Dr. Henry. The BC Civil Liberties Association has sent you a letter asking why religious services are banned while restaurants and retail remain open. They say the right to practice religion is protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they're urging you to change your order banning in-person church services. So why can't you make an exception for small, masked, physically distanced church services when people can still go to a restaurant with their families?
那么他也说的，为什么这个餐厅啊什么都没完全禁，而教堂的这些宗教活动全部禁了呢？那你可以为什么可以让他们戴个口罩啊，小范围的到教会去啊？那么他做解释了，他说这个完全不一样的一个，从根本上来讲是不一样的。我们已经看到了很多的这个情况，因为病毒不会说认识这个是教堂，那个是餐厅。我们已经看到了很多在这个教会里边、教堂里边传播的这个事例。
We've been very consistent through this. 50 people keeping distances, that even with those safety measures in place,
那么他说，计算这些地方大家限制50个人，人员聚集这个距离都没有用。所以我认为在这些地方的风险太大了。这个跟我们说的宗教自由没有关系，这个不是这个关系。我们也是跟了很多宗教领袖谈了很多，沟通了很多次，让他们知道他们要穿越来进了我们，尽管这个相互之间有这些措施也希望他们参与进来，我们共同面对病毒，反抗击病毒，特别是这些这个宗教信仰的团体啊，这个领袖啊，他们也意识到，大家都意识到这个病毒在这些场所特别容易传播。这个那边的情况是风险太大。
Yeah, a group of families say the charter rights of seniors are being violated by visitor restrictions in care homes that, even though an essential visitor is allowed, many are being denied access with a lack of consistency between care home operators, and there's no mechanism for appeal. Dr. Henry, why is this being allowed, and what, if anything, can you do to address the discrepancy?
这个就是老外的西方人的和中国人的区别就在这儿了。他们就是认为这个你要我强制这个强制那个，就是我的人权受到侵犯了。
have been working to ensure that those guidelines are applied appropriately and consistently. And there is indeed an appeal mechanism, and there's several layers of that, so people can appeal right away to the manager of the facility, but there's also to the Patient Safety Quality Office, etc. So this is an ongoing challenge for sure, and right now it is really important that we pay attention to what we're doing, how we're interacting with people in long-term care. And we have seen how devastating these outbreaks can be, and we are focusing our attention on doing what we can to protect people in long-term care, residents and workers, by focusing our vaccine efforts right now. But it's going to be some time until we can fill that gap and keep people protected.
这个病情情况是得不到缓解的，所以这个不牵涉到这个人权的问题啊。那么卫生厅长也是说到了教会的问题，包括了宗教倾向的对这个病毒对这个他们的活动的冲击啊，这个的确是他们也是寻求了很多的专家的意见建议。他说我也感激所有的社区的领导就是他说的社区领导，就是这些宗教的领袖啊，他们都跟我们的交流参与。所以他说我们的信息是很明确的。
Most secular and some not secular or religious events that are not allowed right now. Gatherings.
所以现在就不允许有任何的原因的聚集。
COVID-19 doesn't argue these questions. COVID-19 seeks new hosts, and right now. In November and December, in the world, COVID-19 is on the march, and so we have to take steps right now to protect one another and protect our most vulnerable. And that's true in long-term care as well. With respect to visitation, that it has been extraordinarily difficult for everybody involved, family members of residents in long-term care. And there are ways to appeal this circumstance. But I would say this, our priority, our focus right now,
特别的困难，因为家人又不能去，现在又要节假日了，的确是。所以他说我们竭尽所能，希望能够保护长期护理院，让他们安全。
And part of the goal of that is not just to keep people safe or to immunize those communities and care workers so that our long-term care numbers we can see go down, but also to reestablish the kind of life that we would want to have for our loved ones in long-term care, to reestablish social activities in those communities who have been without them more than anyone else over time. And so when we are debating specific rules and we're saying, well, can we just be on this side of the rule or not that side of the rule at this crucial time?
他说，在这个紧要关头呢，我们没有额外的特例，所以我也请求大家理解，不要再对我们的这个政策对我们规则有怀疑、有这个争论啊，就是请大家遵守。在这个特别紧要的关头，也是说到了，请大家看到了这个特殊的情况，现在这么情况这么严格的严重的情况下。
Of getting vaccine into long-term care homes and to the residents. Is there any sense about the timing of that at this point? You say a couple of weeks. Can you be more specific? Is it likely there any chance of it being the Pfizer vaccine, or will it more likely have to wait until Moderna given its imminent approval?
Yes, so that's
然后呢，第二个提到的就是莫丹娜啊，莫丹娜，另外一个药的什么时候批准？现在说的都是辉瑞疫苗，辉瑞疫苗，因为主要是它这个冷藏要零下70度、80度，所以这个要求特别高，所以现在这个特殊容器下个礼拜各个卫生局都有了。那么现在一定要保证这个运输的安全。
the stability of the vaccine
疫苗的稳定性和有效性。
hopeful.
所以我也希望
we're here that that it may be as early as tomorrow that we're going to get advice from Pfizer about how it's worked. We have different checks and balances and things that data that we've been sending back to them all along the way, and it's been worked out together across the country. So tomorrow we hope to hear some news. That will be the earliest, and our plan is as soon as we are able to, that we will be targeting immunization to long-term care residents and workers in the care home. That's the way we do it for influenza, so that's ways that we're quite used to providing vaccines to residents as well as to workers. So we're hopeful that that might happen as early as next week. If things work out that things worked with the supply chain this week. And the second vaccine, as you say, the Moderna vaccine, again, we've heard finally that we are going to be getting some doses in December, assuming it gets approval from Health Canada for safety and for efficacy, so that it works. And just heard not too long ago that the FDA in the US has approved Moderna vaccine, and I know Health Canada is going through the papers and the data right now, and have been for some time, so we're hoping that we'll hear from that very soon as well. So whichever of those happens first, we'll be looking at targeting those people most at risk and moving into long-term care residents as soon as we can. And that is going to be a game changer for us. If we get through this period, we can protect residents in long-term care, and we can start allowing people to safely come back into those communities again and be with their loved ones.
我也希望能够大家的这个长期护理能够回到正常的正常态下。
questions about people would be maybe not in the immediate priority list, but sort of a little bit down the list, but still in there, like folks that are over 80, and just asking the question once vaccines available, how do they
那么他是说到了这个优先次序里边，那不在长期护理院的那些80岁以上的老人，他们的优先次序这个在你的这个短的列表里边的情况怎么样？是不是他们还是需要预约来打，或者是他们是受到通知去打，
Yes, so we are looking at all of those ideas. And yes, as we said, we had a very small amount of vaccine this week, 3,900 doses. We're figuring out how to use it, how to make sure that we use it properly and that it's safe to use and that the clinics know how to run. And we're going to be expanding that across the province. So we only just earlier this week received confirmation of the doses that we'll be receiving next week and the week of the 28th of December. And today, we got notification that we will be receiving doses the first week of January. So that allows us to understand the numbers of people that we can immunize in these weeks. Having said that, right now, the maximum number of doses that Canada expects to receive in the first quarter of 2021, and what we're receiving here in December comes from that allotment. So we are the contract is to receive enough to immunize 3.8 million people.
3.9， 他说加拿大的计划是到了2021年，包括12月份2021年的第一季度，可以是3.8万，就380万人能够免疫。这个里边包括了长期护理院的居民、远职员以及这个医护人员等等。希望这些都是高风险的人能够先打。他说的是3.8 million 380万，整个加拿大就是获得的第一季度，包括12月份的总共的疫苗。
at-risk populations and people over age 80 in the community. We're looking at phasing that in over the next few months between now and March. And yes, we will have a system for making sure that people have equal or equitable access to vaccine. We're still working through those details as we get confirmation of when we might receive more vaccine. So please be patient. We will be working it through. We will make it very clear when we know how much vaccine we have, how it's going to be delivered, where it's going to be delivered to, and people will get a notification of how they can get their vaccine.
We have time for one more question. For everyone listening this afternoon, Dr. Henry and Minister Dix will release a statement with the latest information on cases, hospitalizations, and outbreaks, which you can find at news.gov.bc.ca. For updated province-wide restrictions, visit gov.bc.ca/COVID restrictions. And for information about the province's new orders and pandemic supports, visit gov.bc.ca/COVID-19. Last question today is from Tina Lovegreen, CBC.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Dr. Henry, you mentioned earlier your concerns about the outbreak at the Little Mountain Care Home. We've heard from family members of loved ones there who say there is a lack of transparency from both Vancouver Coastal Health and Little Mountain in particular. Do facilities and health authorities need to be more forthcoming with family members about conditions inside facilities?
Yeah, I know they have their processes for doing that, and that they do provide information to families on a routine basis. I can't speak to Little Family directly. I'm not aware of exactly what is being passed on to families in that facility, but I'm upset to hear that people are feeling that they're not getting the information they need, and we'll certainly follow up on that.
Do you have a follow-up, Tina?
Yes, thank you very much. Just to follow up, with hospital bed capacity nearing 90% in BC, I was wondering how close are we to having to activate the field hospital that was set up at the Vancouver Convention Centre back in the spring? And if you could also please get an answer in French.
Yeah, as you know, when we moved into the fall, we had our scaled-up plan for how the acute care system would respond to the second wave of the pandemic, and it did include, of course, still the potential for the field hospital, and it is ready to go at, I think we're at 48 hours notice, and we are maintaining that resource. We're not at the place where we need to do that, and we are monitoring around the province, making sure that backup where it's needed, and as we've talked about, it's been a challenge in the north in particular, where there's been a number of hospitalizations, and part of the plan to ensure that we can maintain services as they're needed across the province. Several people were transferred both to Vancouver and here to Vancouver Island. So we are managing, we're coping, but it reminds us again how important it is for all of us to do our piece right now, because we are bumping up against that stretch in our health system, in our public health system. We've flattened our line, but we have not yet come down to the level that we need to. There's still too much transmission in our community, and that reflects in outbreaks in our long-term care. It reflects in workplaces, it reflects in cases that we see in schools. So now is the time that we have vaccine, we have a way that we can see light at the end of this tunnel, particularly to protect those who are most at risk and to take that pressure off our healthcare system. But it's going to take us weeks to get that vaccine to where it needs to go so that we can breathe a little easier. And right now, I need everybody to keep your gatherings small. Stick with your household. Celebrate and be close to those that you love, that you care about, in a virtual way that keeps everybody safe, so that they're here to celebrate with you on Family Day, on Easter, next Christmas.
那么希望大家平安的度过这个跟家人平安的度过圣诞节以及这个新年，特别是这些虚拟的方式virtual。
Last year at this time, hospital capacity in acute care was just over 104% of capacity. So we were
他说去年的这个时候，其实他说这个占用的情况是100%了那么因为他说苹果是苹果，这个是英文的，也就是说情况不一样。那么现在呢，他说是平常的占用，平常的就是普通的病床其实是70%，这个重症监护是90%了，所以这个是主要是这个问题。
And in addition to that, we have the capacity, if we need to, and as we showed in March, to lessen other activity in the healthcare system. For example, last week we did, for this time of year, actually the last week of the week ending December the 6th, we did, I think, 300 surgeries, which would be the most we've ever done in that period at any time. So obviously, if we needed to deal, especially for surgeries that require ICU or ICU we would be able to limit those numbers if necessary. So we have a lot of flexibility in managing the system right now, and our folks are doing a tremendous job. There's also no question that when you have 40 inpatients, 40 patients with COVID-19 in a hospital such as the University Hospital in Northern BC, it puts stress on the hospital, and we have to mitigate that by finding and opening new wards and dealing with that situation. So, and the final situation, of course, is simply the challenge and the real challenge. After basically a year of this, to our doctors, to our nurses, to our healthcare workers, to our health sciences professionals who are under tremendous stress. So the issue really isn't the bed capacity. We're fine on bed capacity, as you can see by the numbers. The challenge is the challenge to the people working in acute care, and it's real. Je dirais que en général,
这个他用法语在给重复刚才的话。那么我再给大家重复一下过去24小时的数字。在过去24小时里边新增了673例 ，BC 省现在的总数到了44776个，其中延安卫生局新增了145例。飞沙卫生局新增了403例，岛上卫生局新增了4例，内陆卫生局新增了66例，北部卫生局新增了47例，其还有一个就是境外获得的，这次有8例那么现在呢是10019这个案例。在活跃着，在被我们的公卫宣传区的监视隔离。那么其中呢388个住院，住院的里边就98个在重症监护。过去24小时里边死亡21例，到了总数是713例，这个很遗憾这个死亡这个第二波死亡人数太厉害了。
en soins intensifs, mais aussi sur l'effet de COVID-19 après quand même 10 mois sur la capacité de vivre et de travailler, de ceux qui travaillent, nos infirmières, nos médecins, nos travailleurs dans les hôpitaux. Donc on est avec eux. Et c'est évidemment un défi, mais cela étant, maintenant, on tient dans les hôpitaux.
疫苗有对这个重症的100%的他们结束了。好，那么各位观